the Gulf, and they would have taken a couple of hours, an hour and a half perhaps, to get, no, big part, an hour to get from there to Baghdad. And those are the targets that we are specifically aware they have been hitting, the airport and the missile installations around Baghdad, because we heard that from Gary Shepard. We have been hearing from Tony Cordesman, one of our military analysts, that they are assumedly hitting all over the country. Also joining us from Boston is General Bernard Trainor, who's also going to be a resident military analyst for us for the duration of this war. General Trainor, what are your first thoughts?
Well, Peter, I think this is probably the start of a massive air campaign. I would suspect there's probably between 400 to 600 aircraft in this initial wave. The very interesting thing was that the air raid sirens in Baghdad did not sound until after your reporter on the scene gave an indication of anti-aircraft fire. And I think this indicates that the first wave, or the first strikes into Baghdad, were probably by the stealth aircraft, and they didn't pick them up until the explosions began. Now, with regard to targets, particularly in view of the fact that they lost their communications out of Baghdad, I would suspect one of the principal targets that the stealth was after was the electrical grid, the communications grid, which allowed Baghdad to communicate and produce electricity. So at this point, I think the game plan to electronically cripple the Iraqis is well underway.
Just to remind our audience, or to tell our audience, in case you haven't seen General Trainor with us before, that he's had as much experience as any senior American military officer with the Iraqis. You spent about 6-7 months with the Iraqi military, didn't you?
No, it's about 2 months.
I beg your pardon, 2 months with them. But in listening to you earlier today, we talked a little bit about their preparedness. If the air raid sirens didn't work, as you say, they didn't, and we didn't hear them for quite some time, are you surprised?
Nope, not at all. The stealth aircraft are designed to do exactly that. They would be going after targets such as command and control and electrical grids to dominate the communications network of the Iraqis. I wouldn't figure that the stealth aircraft would be going after anti-aircraft missiles. The other aircraft, which will follow and surely are in the air at this point, will be going after that sort of target.
Give us a sense, General Trainor, of how much is in the air at the moment and where you think it may be just in terms of flying time.
Well, I'm just assuming that we can generate a rate of about 2,000 attacks in a 24-hour period, given the number of aircraft that we have over there. And if we've just launched this sort of thing, just a ballpark estimate would be that would be something in the vicinity from, as I've indicated, probably 400 to 600 aircraft striking targets not only in Iraq but also in Kuwait. And these would be, I would assume, primarily at targets which would allow the Iraqis to control their anti-air defenses, things like their radars, things like their communications. And the preliminary indications seem to bear that out.
Okay, General Trainor, stand by for a second. We're going to go to overseas now to London, where ABC's chief foreign correspondent, Pierre Salinger, is standing by. We have indeed lost communications not only from Baghdad at the moment, but also from eastern Saudi Arabia. In the case of Saudi Arabia, we're not sure whether that's a result of something more than a power failure. As Bill Rediker was standing there, out not very far from the ABC News offices, the air raid sirens went. The ABC News office is quite close to an operating military airfield. So we'll try to keep you up to date as to what may be happening in that particular location of eastern Saudi Arabia. But from now, we are, as we always suspected we would be, going to be listening to this from the fringes and trying to analyze it from the fringes, in some cases at great distance, for some considerable period of time. Pierre Salinger in London.
Yeah, well, Peter, you're very accurate because now we're being cut off from the real information coming out of that area, although we have heard already that there have been 3 waves of U.S. air attacks by F-15 aircraft, among other things. And those attacks have been going against not only Baghdad, but also against certain Iraqi positions in Kuwait. Other than that, we have heard that there is, of course, an alert inside Saudi Arabia, sirens in Riyadh, in Dhahran, people going into